In Minneapolis, cop standpoint, right? I am disgusted with the things that happened in Minneapolis. Period, point blank. Things could have went way different. At the end of the day, let's talk facts. The guy is on the ground. He's laying on his stomach. He have handcuffs on. It's 4 of y'all, 1 of him. 4 of y'all, 1 of him. Who has control of this situation? It's not much one person could do against 4 people. Now let's get deeper, right? As an officer, you are a first responder, right? So if in the midst of you trying to gain compliance, someone is hurt, you have to render aid. So somebody saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, you don't think to yourself and say, oh my gosh, this guy can't breathe, he might die. Let me render aid, right? Another point, officers, other officers, if you're going to be an officer that's going to stand there and not help when things go wrong, come on, like you don't see that? That's the reason I got behind this badge, right? Because I want them officers that's afraid to step up, I want to be the one to step up. If I see wrong happening, wrong is not happening in my presence, right? I'm going to check it, and that's period.
Everybody in the world knows that there are bad people, but everybody in the world knows that all people aren't bad. The entire world knows that there are good cops and there are cops that are bad cops. But we all are aware that there are more good cops than there are in fact bad cops. The problem is the good cops just don't speak up enough about the bad cops, in all honesty. If you defund your police departments, to all of you poor folks, this is what's going to happen. Crime will rise, and there will be more child rapes and murders of innocent people, and there'll be more people oppressed by people from within the communities. And there won't be enough cops to investigate when daughters and mothers and sisters are raped and murdered.
It's not even like that. It's not even like that. It's about staying neutral. That's what's important. That's what's important. So I'm gonna put the niggas, these motherfuckers not staying, goddamn. What's that? He killed somebody? Did he kill somebody? Nigga, that fucking squad did that shit. I get out my motherfucking family. Yes, I see them as human beings, just like I see everybody on this side as human beings. We're all human. This uniform doesn't make him a robot. Just like your uniform, your skin color doesn't make you a criminal.
Won't take a knee for no other black people that have been murdered. I never heard them talk about Tashawn Lee. I never heard them talk about that 9-year-old that got murdered in cold blood. They haven't even mentioned his name. I guess he don't even count. They know nothing about that kid. And the sad part is, Tashawn Lee, he was killed for no reason. He didn't do nothing to deserve to die. But they could tell you about the other kid, Tamir Rice, and he deserved, I ain't say he deserved to die. He put a gun on police officers and they shot him. And unfortunately he died. But Tamir Rice is everywhere. Tashawn Lee, nobody knows who he is. How does that make sense? Colin Kaepernick, they ain't took a knee for none of these black people who have died at the hands of other black people. What is the mission here? Do you want less black people to die? I don't get it. Like, in 2019, 9 black people were shot unarmed, or who were unarmed were shot by the police. And we all know, unless you dumb, you know that every unarmed person isn't innocent. There's reasons why you can be shot although you don't have a gun in your hand. And so we know 9 people weren't innocently killed. But just for the sake of argument, just say that 9 of them were innocently killed. It's 9 people. 9. I think in Chicago, I think I read in this article, they had 18 people killed in 24 hours. 24 hours, they had 18 homicides in 24 hours in one part of one city in one state in the United States of America. It's 50 states, one state. 18 homicides in 24 effing hours. And police done shot 9 people over 365 days multiplied by 24 hours. I don't even know what that number is. It's Nancy Pelosi now taking a knee, kneeling to show respect for George Floyd. 25 black people have died one weekend, one city, one part of one city. We're not going to even talk about all the brothers and sisters that have gotten murdered in the protest. We're not going to even talk about their black lives. You got kids getting murdered. You got good people. You got aspiring black people who will grow up to probably be somebody. They wasn't smoking meth. They not robbing women at gunpoint. They're going to college and getting an education. Murder. They not going to get a name. They ain't going to get a day. You ain't going to know. Nobody even know who the 25 people that died in that city. And y'all up here talking about police brutality. Let me give you some stats. Y'all don't understand how mad this make me. Y'all have no idea. Chicago, I looked it up. I put it on my Twitter. They had 192 deaths, black people murdered in Chicago last year. Do you know how many police officers killed unarmed black men in Chicago in 2019? 0. Not one. Let's go to 2020. 2020. We're not even halfway through the year yet. And Chicago has 191 black homicides. Do you know how many black people were shot unarmed by Chicago police this year? 0. None.
Take a look at this graph. Yep. That shows that you have a 0.77% chance of getting killed by the police for every 1 million people that's not just arrested, but arrested for a violent crime. The criminals that the police arrest, there's not even a 1% chance. Let's back it up a bit. See, police profile. It's part of their job. They profile based on people that fit certain descriptions because, statistically speaking, those people pose the largest risk to them. What does that look like? Well, 55% of violent crime is committed by not people of color, not black females, black males. So statistically speaking, the most dangerous thing to a police officer in terms of people in America is a black male. Why is that? Well, crime follows poverty. Crime also follows fatherlessness. Fatherlessness is a monumentally greater issue to the black community than police brutality.
All right? Okay? Okay? It's all right. We're all here together, okay?
Down at 16 is come up with a better way. Because how we doing it, it ain't working. He angry at 46. I'm angry at 31. You angry at 16. It's over. You understand me? Putting yourself in harm's way is not the way. No, it's not. You and another your counterparts the same age and that has that same power. Y'all come up with a better way. Cause we ain't doing it. Oh my God.
Years ago, I interviewed Kwesi Mfume, then the president of the NAACP. As between the presence of white racism and the absence of black fathers, I asked him, which poses the bigger threat to the black community? Without missing a beat, he said, the absence of black fathers. It was President Barack Obama who said, we all know these statistics, that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. In 1960, 5% of America's children entered the world without a mother and father married to each other. By 1980, it was 18%. By 2000, it had risen to 33%, and 15 years later, the number reached 41%. Economist Walter Williams has written that, according to census data from 1890 to 1940, a black child was more likely to grow up with married parents than a white child. For blacks, out-of-wedlock births have gone from 25% in 1965 to 73% in 2015. For whites, from less than 5% to over 25%, and for Hispanics, out-of-wedlock births have risen to 53%. What happened to fathers? The answer is found in a basic law of economics. If you subsidize undesirable behavior, you will get more undesirable behavior. In 1949, the nation's poverty rate was 34%. By 1965, it was cut in half to 17%, all before President Lyndon Johnson's so-called war on poverty. But after that war began in 1965, poverty began to flatline. From 1965 until now, the government has spent over $20 trillion to fight poverty. The poverty rate has remained unchanged, but the relationship between poor men and women has changed dramatically. That's because our generous welfare system allows women, in effect, to marry the government. And this makes it all too easy for men to abandon their traditional moral and financial responsibilities. We know that the welfare state creates disincentives that hurt the very people we're trying to help. They tell us. In 1985, the Los Angeles Times asked both the poor and the non-poor whether poor women often have children to get additional benefits. Most of the non-poor respondents said no. However, 64% of poor respondents said yes. Now,
Tony Childress is my name, and I am the sheriff of Livingston County, which is the fourth largest county in the state of Illinois. We're 90 miles south of Chicago. I call it rural central Illinois, and we have an ideology that I feel and many others feel works very well. And that ideology is being a friend of the community, supporting the community with programs like shopping with the sheriff, like Halloween with the children, always being there as a listening ear for the community and working with the community. And Mr. President, we are happy to sit down with you and to try and do everything we can to make this nation better by keeping the community safe.
And I will always continue to say that riots are socially destructive and self-defeating. I'm still convinced that non-violence is the most potent weapon available to oppress people in their struggle for freedom and justice. I feel that violence will only create more social problems than they will solve. That in a real sense it is impractical for the Negro to even think of mounting a violent revolution in the United States.
At the age of 12 years old, I shot myself. I was in the house. Police knocked on the door. I was right there. They knocked the door down. Everybody jumped over my body to go get the guns and drugs and whatever they could find. It took one guy to stop right there and cuss everybody that hopped over me out. Like, what the f*** are y'all doing? They said, oh, no, we was going to see if it, what the f*** are y'all doing? We called the ambulance. A ambulance, do you not see this kid on the floor with this hole in his chest? Say, you drive, pick me up, brought me to the hospital. He didn't drop me off at the ambulance and say, you take him. He brought me to the hospital room and made two and stood there and waited till the doctor said he's gonna make it. He said, don't worry, my name's Uncle Bob. He was white as snow. Them that hopped over me was blacker than me.
Was he a cop?
Yeah, he was a cop, and my life was saved by a white man. I don't know what racism is. I know a good named Uncle Bob, though.